Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Talking Ballax podcast. My name is Jack. I'm one of your hosts. I'm once again joined by Euan. Euan, how are you?
Not bad. Hi, Jack. How we doing?
Mate, work is busy, but and football is stressful as always and pretty turgid at the moment. But yeah, generally pretty good, mate. Yeah. Can't all be living the high life in the top four at the moment.
Well, you've been there. You've been there.
Yeah,
You know it.
yeah. But yeah, so we'll dive straight in today. But the first thing I want to do is just do a little bit of a plug for myself, really. So obviously, just going to start off with the basics. Recently, somebody in our very very close family circle, is actually my partner's father, died from cancer very recently, and I'm currently I've recently entered to compete in the Leicester 10K for it, which is on the 16th of April this year. And I'm currently trying to raise money for the charity or the hospice that is currently on show on the screen. For those of you who are listening and not watching on YouTube, that is the Martlets Hospice, which does all their work in Sussex. Okay. And basically, what they do is they provide end of life care and support for obviously the people going through cancer and for the families as well. They've helped hundreds, if not thousands, of people throughout the Sussex area, and they were very, very supportive to David and my partner's family. So this is something that's quite close to my heart. And so far, I only obviously started asking for donations today. We've nearly raised £1,000 already. So, and that's like nearly double what I expected to raise in the first place. So if we could donate, that would be amazing. I will put the link to my Just Giving page in the description, both on Spotify and on YouTube. It's also on a tweet that I put out. It's currently the pinned tweet of the Talking Ballax account. So literally, I know times are hard at the moment. Me and Euan were just talking about things like that off air. But we know times are hard at the moment. But honestly, it'd be amazing if you could donate literally anything, like £1, £5, whatever it is. I'm already doing better than I hope to. So it would be incredible for people to donate to this very, very good cause. Okay, Martlets do incredible work, very, very similar to the work that Loros do in Leicester as well. For those of you from the local area who are listening, it would be incredible to try and help them because they were so supportive to my partner and her family. So please check out that link in the description. As you can see currently on the screen now, that's just a little bit about them. Okay, thank you. I'll move on from that. So first thing I wanted to talk about, we'll go back to football. Euan, first thing I wanted to talk about before we get on to our main topic, which is the battle of the wingers today. I wanted to play a fun little game with you, and I'm going to do it myself as well. So it's not like I'm just stitching you up. But the game I would like to play is Sell or Keep, and it's a quick fire game. I don't want any maybe like a very very brief explanation. But we're going to play a game of Sell or Keep, and we're going to do that with the Newcastle United squad. And no, before you ask, I haven't made that graphic myself. That's well out of my area of expertise.
I'm going to say, Jack, I'm well impressed with that. Whoa,
I'll claim it. I'll claim it.
Yeah, too right.
So the image is obviously from the Newcastle squad, and it's a picture of all of the different players on the screen at the moment. You've got Carl Darlow, Martin Dubravka, Mark Gillespie, and obviously if I scroll down a little bit, you've also got Loris Karius and Nick Pope. You've got a lot of goalkeepers, my word.
Yeah, we do.
So we'll just play a really, really quick game. And unless there is like a sort of quantifying statement, I want to know whether you would keep or sell. And I want as quick answers as possible.
I will. I've been thinking on this.
Okay, so we'll start with Carl Darlow, keep or sell?
Sell. Not good enough.
Yeah. Dubravka?
Sell just because he wanted to leave as soon as the first opportunity came up.
Fair enough. Gillespie?
Keep, purely because of the homegrown rule. He was brought through in our academy, so he's not just homegrown, he's actually our homegrown, which, can't believe I'm saying this, Europe, very important.
Yeah, no, very true. Karius?
Keep, got lots of experience in Champions League and European competitions generally, and seems like a really good character around the place. So,
yeah, fair enough. And Nick Pope?
Keep.
Yeah, that was going to be easy. Yeah.
No more needs to be said.
Right, defenders. Botman?
Keep.
Dan Burn?
Keep, again, homegrown rule, really important.
I imagine that'll be the same for Paul Dummett as well.
No, it's not actually. Reason being, we've got some young lads coming through: Jamie Miley, Lewis Miley, Elliot Anderson, who would probably take us over that threshold. And to be honest, I like him. I think he's a lovely lad and that, but he needs to either see out his career at somewhere else or retire because he can't keep fit.
Yeah. It seems like an age ago that he was one of the starting back four for you.
Whereas the other ones are actually fit, he's not. That's the difference.
Yeah. Kraft.
Sell.
Lascelles.
Sell, only because I think he could bring in a little bit of money. It sounds like there's a lot of clubs in for him.
Yeah. Is that Jamal Lewis? I forgot about him.
Jamal Lewis, yeah. Yeah, sell. Hard because I feel like he's got ability, but I'm not sure he's going to ever make it with us.
Yeah. You got a players. Manquillo.
Tough one. He can play right and left back. So, given our situation at the minute, keep.
Richie.
Make him coaching staff. Don't let him go. Keep him as coaching staff. He seems like a great guy to have around the place. And also, I've probably underestimated his influence in the dressing room. Don't think he's a great footballer anymore at all, but great person.
Yeah, fair. Share.
Definitely keep.
Yeah, he looks like a player reborn under Howe, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
Target.
Keep.
And I know this one as well. Trippier, I imagine, will be a keep.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, considering last week you gave him an 8.5-year contract.
Yeah.
We got Miggy.
Yes, I would keep. Although if you'd asked me this last summer, I said sell.
Yeah. Elliot Anderson.
Definitely keep. Again, homegrown, like Newcastle homegrown. So definitely. Also think he should go out on loan this window to give him that regular game time.
Yeah. Joe Linton.
Definitely keep. Love that man.
Yeah. Fraser.
Sell. Decent wages he's on apparently, and sounds like there's a few championship clubs in for him, as maybe like an Everton. So yeah, sell.
Bruno.
Keep. Never let him go. Keep him forever.
Sean Longstaff.
Keep.
Murphy.
Oh, this was what I was so stuck on. What a man. What a bloke. Did you see the little wave?
The little wave. Oh my God, the little wave.
He's come into himself. And I heard from someone who was out in Saudi when they went out there, who was in the same room as Lascelles, Howe, Murphy. He got asked, what's the best bit of advice you've ever been given? And he said, stop hitting the post. And he's one of them who's got a lot of character and he's desperate to be part of the leadership group in the changing room. So I've got so much time for him. And I actually think I would keep him because I think he gets what it means. He would be about 5th choice winger, but I would keep him just because of his personality and what he offers.
Yeah. Looks like Shelby is going, but I'm going to ask you anyway, just in case it falls through at the last minute. Keep or sell?
For the money Forest are offering, sell. I would have kept him if they hadn't been offering 10 million quid because that's ridiculous in my opinion. But yeah, great ability, but never fit again. A bit like Dummett.
Yeah. Willock.
Keep.
And then we move into a forward line. Anthony Gordon not yet got a picture, but we know what he looks like because he'll be on the thumbnail. We can't. So I'm not going to count him because you've only just signed him. Exactly. Isak.
Definitely keep.
Yeah, Maxi.
For me, it's a no-brainer. Maxi has to stay. I know there's been rumours, but as far as I'm concerned, unless someone's going to offer stupid money, why would we? He's someone who can make a difference. So absolutely keep.
Yeah, Wilson.
Keep. Although I've heard of a new deal on improved wages, I'm not so sure I'd be offering improved wages. I think I'd be offering him an extended deal, maybe 4 years, just because again, great person to have around the place. Good poacher. Not sure on the improved deal thing though.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. Right. So that is the Newcastle team done. Now I will be much more negative and go through the Leicester squad, and the graphic on this, unfortunately, I don't think is quite as good. They don't quite get as much of an intense close-up, but we'll go through it anyway. So there'll be a lot of players in this squad that you probably forgot or didn't realise were in our squad, to be fair.
Yeah.
So Danny Ward, I would keep because I think he is not a bad goalkeeper, but I think that we could do with a better number one. Smithies, and we like the 3 goalkeeper. It's a homegrown rule again, I suppose. But I'd sell. Everson, I think he needs to play. He's a good goalkeeper, so I would probably loan, but definitely keep. I think he's too good to be sat on our bench at the moment. Justin, keep all day. Faz, keep. Soyuncu, sell. Should have gone in the summer, definitely. Bertrand, sell. Evans is incredible. If we can get him back fit, I would keep him all day, but he looks like he's made of glass at the moment, so I would consider selling him potentially.
So Soyuncu, sorry, this is an interesting one. I've heard that there's a couple of clubs looking to take him. If Atleti being the main one, if they can get rid of Felipe, who's obviously linked to a couple of clubs.
Yeah.
Leverkusen was one. There's a couple in the Premier League looking. Would you get rid of him this window?
Oh yeah, 100%. He's barely kicked a ball this year, and he don't want to be there.
Yeah.
And it would be a massive, massive chunk off the wage bill as well.
Yeah.
For a player that is a bit part player this season. Christiansen, who only made a cameo appearance against Walsall, but he actually made an overlapping run, and I think I nearly fell off my chair because Thomas just does not do that. Looks very, very powerful. Amati, sell. Pereira, keep if you can stay fit. Vestergaard, sell. And Castagna. I love Tim Castagna. I think he's easy 6.5, 7 out of 10 every week.
He's versatile as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's just not a very glamorous player, but I'd keep.
Pereira's been unlucky as well with injuries. I know, because it's not like a hamstring. It's like proper injuries, really bad injuries. Poor lad, I feel for him because he's a hell of a player.
Yeah, when he's fit and firing, he's incredible.
But
I think if we bring in another fullback in the summer, because obviously he's brought in Christiansen, which means we've now got 2 left backs. You've got Justin, Castagna, and Pereira who can play right back, or Justin can play right side of a back 3. I think you could potentially see Pereira or Tim playing a little bit higher up the pitch as a winger, and it maybe negates the fact about going to sign another winger after Tetê, but we'll get on to Tetê in a bit. Thomas, homegrown player. I really want Luke Thomas to do well because he's from Syston. He's a local lad. I really want to see him do well, but his development has kind of stinted. But I think having Christiansen now will benefit him because he's actually got competition for his place. So hoping that kicks on. Midfield, Barnes, keep homegrown. Another local lad I want to see do well, but he needs to work on his finishing. My word.
I just want to say something about Barnes. Obviously with my name, people have probably maybe assumed I'm Scottish as well as English. Harvey Barnes is eligible for Scotland, and I think, and I know a lot of English people, and especially people in your region. I know he's capable of playing for England, but I don't ever think he's going to get the chance. And I think playing for Scotland would allow him to play and almost develop this confidence, because I feel like he's a confidence player.
100%.
If he was playing against your Moldovas and stuff, he would run the show. And I think he'd be brilliant for Scotland. So it's brilliant for obviously Scottish fans like myself, but also brilliant for him. I think it'd be really good for him. Yeah,
no, I'm with you there, mate. But I think he's definitely, particularly this season, he's one of them players that stats don't tell the whole story. And I worry. I know this is going off my quick fire questions, but
no, it's all right.
I'll say this when we get on to Tetê, because I'm going to talk a bit about
no bother.
I'll save it till then. Tielemans, if he's not going to sign a new contract, should have gone in the summer. But at the moment, the situation we're in, we can't really afford to sell him. So at least until the summer,
I'll
keep. No,
not now.
Madison, I keep forever. Honestly, best player we have at the moment. Albrighton, love him. Absolutely brilliant servant to the club, like genuinely phenomenal professional. But sell, I think his time is done. KDH, I would keep 100%.
Yep.
Mendy, I like Mendy, but I just think he's another one who he's not. I don't know with Mendy. He never astounds me, but I don't hate him either. He's a decent player, but again,
he's an honest player, isn't he? He's an honest lad.
He's a bit like Matt Ritchie. He's not great, he's not bad, but he just doesn't really bring much to the team at the moment.
Yeah.
And Didi, if you can get back to his form, keep all day. Pratt, I like him. I think he's a good player, but I'd sell him. And Samara.
It's a strange one, Pratt, isn't it? Pratt's a really strange one because he was so sought after when he was at Sampdoria. I know there was a lot of clubs looking at him. Arsenal were keen. We were keen. I know you obviously got him, but you'd watched him for a while. I was really expecting him to. This may sound very, very but I was expecting him to have that De Bruyne mould where he was going to take control of your midfield. And I feel he's had moments, but it's weird. I don't know.
Right before the very first lockdown, he was in the midfield. And a lot of Leicester fans will probably disagree with me, but we all have short memories because he's been a bit crap recently. But he genuinely was, in my opinion, someone who was almost undroppable because he's so good at recycling the ball. Like, and when you're a team that wants to play with a possession-based, like the way that Rodgers likes to play, you've got to be comfortable on the ball and you've got to be able to play out of those tight spaces and stuff. And I think he can do that. But the way we're playing at the moment, he's a bit of a luxury player, so that's why he's obviously not doing as well. But yeah, and Samari, I think he's been a lot better at times this season, but he's still a little bit too slow. But I would absolutely keep him, because if he's you look at him, considering he's 23, 24, he's an absolute physical monster.
I think people forget that, don't they?
Yeah, he just needs a play. He needs a like just to unlock his ability. I can't believe I'm going to say what I'm about to say. I think Vardy's days are numbered. If I could, I'd keep him. I'd keep him forever because it's Jamie Vardy. But I think his days are numbered because he's getting injured a lot more recently, and he can't seem to find any form. Personally, our best striker at the moment is the number 14, Iheanacho, and Rodgers just does not seem to play him. But now he's got two out-and-out wingers in Barnes and Tetê. There's the chance that he could play him down the middle because he's not going to have to rely so much on the player running in behind. I like Ayoze. I know we both have a bit of a soft spot for Ayoze, but I think if we could move him on to make funds for somebody else, sell him.
What's the better deal saying? Because I know he was very close to a loan as far as I was aware, and it's kind of gone a bit quiet. What's going on there?
Well, there's talk about him now being linked to Villarreal. And I can't remember who I saw the other day, but I'm sure there was a Premier League team supposedly sniffing around him as well, and a team in Germany. I think he'd probably do. I think he is quintessentially suited to Spanish football, isn't he? The way he plays,
100%.
Yeah, he'd score hatfuls in Spain. Like he'd easily hit double figures every season in Spain.
Joselu and what's the young lad who played for Southampton? Was it Hosemi? Or Wanmi,
yeah. And then you had Iago Aspas as well.
Have gone back there. Yeah, like some of them are just suited, and I think that they've grown up with that tempo, that flow of a game, and he's someone who could probably just literally come alive and make a difference, whereas the Premier League it's harder to do.
Yeah, and then you've got Daka, who, in my opinion, is still the natural successor to Vardy with the way he plays, but he needs support around him. I think him, if he has Maddison playing off him, has someone playing a bit closer to him, he'd do a bit better. Somebody who can just sort of slip him in behind, but he's not great at hold-up play. And
my brother's got a real soft spot for him. I know he watched him a lot when he was at Salzburg. I think he's someone who you might have to give him 5 chances a game, but he'll always be in the positions. And as soon as he gets 3 or 4 on the bounce, he's probably unstoppable.
But you say that, but away at Spartak Moscow last season, he had 5 chances and scored 4 goals. So,
that's what I mean. That's what he's got the ability to do it. I think he's again confidence player, which we've already spoke about.
And then we've got Tetê, who I can't wait to see play. Like let's and that leads us perfectly onto our first topic, which is to talk about the battle of the wingers, which is what this is about, really. And when I say the battle of the wingers, not that Leicester and Newcastle are competing. The question I wanted to ask, and obviously by doing that and taking as much time as we did, because we can't keep to timings at all, is so I want to try and get through these points like in a reasonable time. But like when I say, obviously on the tweet I sent out, I put Gordon v Tetê. I know they're not going to be in direct competition with each other. My point is, considering you've spent 40-45 million on Gordon, whatever the reported figure is, then we've bought Tetê in on loan, and he'll go back to Shakhtar with the situation with the war, and we might have to renegotiate a deal or get him on a pre-contract and then sign him for free next January, depending on how well he does. Who do you think has the bigger impact for their team? I don't mean on the Premier League. I don't mean who's going to go score more goals. Who do you think makes a bigger difference to their team, Tetê or Gordon? That's the question I want to ask. By saying Gordon v Tetê, who has the bigger impact?
Do you know what? This is the thing, right? So I actually know quite a lot about Tetê. The reason being, we bought Bruno from Lyon.
Yeah.
We were linked to Malo Gusto, who's now just gone to Chelsea. We were linked to Lucas Paqueta.
Another one gone to Chelsea. Fucking
hell. God, I know. Tell me about it. It looks like Enzo's off as well. Given the news today. So you've got a lot of Lyon links there, and I watched a lot of Lyon after Bruno came because I was completely blown away by how good he was. And they're all saying, "Oh, his best mate's Paqueta." I remember when me and Ross went on holiday in summer to Turkey. We ended up watching the game. It was Lyon, and they were playing someone. Was it Arsenal? I don't know. I can't remember. They played someone good anyway, and he was head and shoulders above everybody on that pitch.
Yeah,
He was very good. He's almost like an inside forward who becomes a 10. So like a Bernardo used to for City and a David Silva, he almost plays in them pockets, but he can finish. He's very good with his dribbling. He's quick. I really like him. I'm really surprised that you got him so easily.
Well, I think what's happened is if you look at, I mean, I'm actually being positive for a change, and this is not like me because I messaged you at half time in the game against Walsall.
Oh God, Saturday. I know, yeah.
My God, but no, like this is, in my opinion, like I know I criticised Rudkin, I criticised the owners, and I've criticised Rodgers recently, but one person who I think has to take credit for these signings is Martin Glover, who's come in and is now like the head scout or like the head of operations since Massier left. So Massier left, and then we brought in Congerton, who's like Rodgers' mate, who was with him at Liverpool and Celtic and everywhere he's been. Like he was also at Sunderland and was partly responsible for a lot of the garbage that they signed. So
I remember.
I know you were probably happy about it, but
it was baffling. It's a bit like what Chelsea are doing now, but in the bargain basement.
Yeah, but we brought in Martin Glover, who obviously was at Southampton, and obviously they've been very hit and miss with theirs. But like I feel like there's now a vision. Like we signed Vestergaard and Bertrand, and then the club seem now to have gone back to no. We're going to go back to what we were doing before. Yes, we're going to lose players. That's a given. Leicester are always going to be like, because until you start winning things, I know you've got the financial pulling power, but until you start winning things, it's a bit like Arsenal. You know how like they lost Nasri to Man City and they lost Clichy to Man City. Like until you start winning things, yeah, exactly.
Van Persie,
yeah. But like it's not just them. Like other clubs as well. They're just a very very easy example. But until you start winning things, Bruno's head might be turned by a Real Madrid or a Man City or someone like that. And I hope he isn't. I hope he stays at Newcastle. But like those top quality players, Isak, because he's still a young lad, if you don't start winning things, Man City might come in for him, or United if they suddenly get really good again. And it's just, I think if Leicester go back to that point of just accepting, they're like, right, we tried, we went for the Hail Mary with finishing in the top 4. It didn't happen. Let's just reset, reorganize and push again the same way that Brighton are currently doing. And I think that Tetê, I think Christiansen, and I think if we get Harry Suter, I think because they apparently we bid 15 million for him again today at the time of recording, and Stoker apparently like saying, yeah, I think so. But no guarantee yet because it would have to be tomorrow. It'd have to be tomorrow they bring him in. But luckily Stoke's only down the road. I think they seem to be going back to their old model, and I think Tetê definitely looks like a good player. His numbers are good. His numbers this season haven't been spectacular, but to be
fair, he fell out with Blanc, didn't he? He fell out with Blanc. It wasn't for his ability or his attitude or anything. It sounds like Blanc just wasn't a fan. And Blanc's one of them people, given his previous at other clubs. I mean, he's had a few moments like this in his managerial career. As soon as he gets something in his head, that's it. You are not getting back into his team. And to be fair, it probably worked perfectly in your favour.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's what Leicester were always good at, is when the signings were right. It was like Yuri Tielemans at Monaco. We had no right to sign him, but we saw that he was doing badly at Monaco. He wasn't really in favour. And we went, you know what? We'll have him. Take him, bring him in. And it looks like we've done something similar with him. The worry I have is that because he's only on loan, if he comes to us and smashes it, then there's always the chance that somebody will come in and go in the summer and they'll go, oh, do you know what? Like, one of the big teams, they'll go, do you know what? You've got X amount of time left on your contract at Shakhtar. Come and join us in January. And then it's like, well, what does he do? And I hope we can do that. But I think the position we're in right now, unless we win the FA Cup or something, we're not really going to be able to offer him Europe next year. So it's a difficult one. But my point that I was making, though, was like, I feel like I was saying that he's not had great numbers this season. His numbers previously have been incredible. Like his numbers in one of his seasons at Shakhtar was similar to like what Mudrik's have been this season in terms of over the full season. But it's kind of stats for me. I like stats because actually ultimately the stats are what defines whether you win games of football or not. But I do think if you compare it to Barnes, like somebody said that Barnes and Saka have got like an almost identical record. Yet I know exactly which player I'd rather have in my team. Football's not always about the numbers; it's about the eye test as well. And Barnes just doesn't have it. Like you say, he's a confidence player, and I think him on one wing and Tetê on the other. I feel like we kind of have this over reliance to come down the left side, play through Dewsbury Hall, play through Barnes. I think if you can go, okay, not working that side, recycle the play back out to the right. Tetê comes and do some. And the beautiful thing about that is if you can get both of them two firing, you've then got Tetê, Barnes, Maddison in the middle. And I think that front three, when on form, it is a Europa League front three. It is. It's definitely not a Champions League one. Maddison could play in a Champions League team. I don't know much about Tetê, but Barnes on his day, that is a Europa League. It's not a three in behind that should be fighting for relegation. So we'll fight in the relegation.
Absolutely not.
But then compare that to Gordon. Sorry to cut you off. No. But compare that to Gordon. I personally think I rated Anthony Gordon last season. I think he fits your ethos perfectly. I just think with how well you're doing at the moment, for the price you paid, because ultimately 30 million gets you an average Premier League player nowadays, I think it's a lot of money for somebody who doesn't necessarily have that big of an impact. But then he's still young. He's still got time to progress. And under a better coach, I'm not being funny, Eddie Howe is a far superior coach to Frank Lampard. I think you could see a top player by the end of the season, or if not next season. And I think it's a good time to go and get him while he's out of favour. So I don't know what you think. I don't know if you agree or disagree. But
the Gordon one's a really interesting one, because if you look at the way Everton, Liverpool and stuff are built on their communities and that, like, you know, that working class, not that other places aren't, but there's definitely a working class, and you'll know it being where you are, that some places are kind of forgotten about, and their football is what they go to kind of rely on a weekend to make them like, it makes their week at the end of the day. I definitely get the impression that he's someone who will thrive off what we offer as fans. There's some players who come, and I can name them, rattle them off, no problem. Like Remy being one of the main ones. Andy Cole, I know I was very young, but Andy Cole still doesn't really get what Newcastle is. If you speak to Andy Cole, he had his best football with us. He broke records. If you look at all the stats, he broke records. He didn't ever have like the heart for it.
Jose Enrique is a prime one. I know you've been really critical of him recently. That's why. But then you got the flip side. Jonas Gutierrez, was not a great footballer. I'm sorry, he was. I mean, he had his moments, absolutely, but he really bought into Newcastle and what you're about, didn't he? And so did a lot of players.
Yeah, and I think that definitely plays into our hands, because we almost, I remember Joey Barton, right? If you told me Joey Barton was going to be one of my favourite players growing up, I'd have been like, what? Because I love him for so many reasons, but I also really dislike the bloke for other reasons. And I almost think it's one of them. If he plays for you, you love what he offers. If he plays against you, you can't stand him. Now, I remember this season when we played Everton, Anthony Gordon dived in the box at our end at the Gallagher, and the whole Gallagher was up giving him dogs abuse, and Trippier went over and said what he thought of him. Then Shah comes in. You'll have all seen the TikToks and the clips.
It's been the thing at the moment with the announcement videos. They've all been giving him stick for it, haven't they?
And I genuinely was like, oh, you irk me so much. But the one thing that me, Carl and Ross all said when he played, not this season, when we were in a relegation battle last season, we played Everton, and they had Dele Alli, Donny van der Beek. They had all these players who'd come in. And the one player who stood out head and shoulders was Anthony Gordon, and we didn't like him because of the way he is. And I remember we all kind of whispered to each other, and we were like, he's quite good, isn't he? He's annoyingly good. His delivery's good. He works hard. He's pressing. He has energy. He's enthusiastic. That's what Howe likes. If you're going to tell me Almiron or him, I mean, I'm taking Gordon all day of the week.
Every day of the week, sorry. I'm not putting him on the same pedestal at all. But he has got that sort of Bruno Fernandes vibe. Where it's the reason you hate him is, yes, he dives, yes, he plays to the ref, yes, but ultimately he's a fantastic footballer. If he wasn't a good footballer, you would be like, oh, just get over it. But it's a bit like Rooney as well. Rooney used to give it all that, but the reason everyone hated him so much, because you got to get on his back, because otherwise he could be the reason you lose a game alone. And that's the thing. I feel like Gordon with Everton last season. I think if you take Gordon out of that Everton team last season, they don't stay up. I genuinely think him. I think everything that happened in the Ukraine as well fired up Mikalenko as well. I think he's been really, really average this season. Last season, obviously, he was really emotionally charged, fully understandably. I think him and Gordon were two huge catalysts to what they did. And I like him. I'd have taken him at Leicester, but I just think, do you not worry? Again, going back to my point before, do you not worry that if you don't start winning trophies and stuff, and then I don't know, maybe Liverpool or City, or let's say he wants to go home and he goes to Liverpool, because Jamie Carragher's a prime example of how loyalty in football's not a thing.
I don't quite get it, but that's me.
Because I think he fits the Liverpool mold as well in terms of his work rate and his ethic. Let's say you don't win trophies for 3 or 4 years, even though you've got a very good opportunity coming up. I think it will be you and United.
It's never a given, though. It's absolutely never a given. I'm not even
I,
saying it is given. We 1-0 up going into tomorrow's game.
But it is a definitely a chance that there's a chance it will be. Do you not think that if you don't win a trophy for a while, that he might have his head turned by a bigger club just because of how this is played out?
I get exactly what you're saying, but it doesn't bother me. I don't know. And it's not like an arrogance thing. It's not like a petty thing. Like, oh, I'm not ours. It's not that. It's more. Euan Kabay went to PSG and went on strike and wanted to move to Arsenal, and we had to deal with it. We had to stomach it. The difference is now, if a player wants to leave for us, it's going to be for someone at the very top, and the likelihood is we've got Dan Ashworth, who has proved at Brighton that system that he implemented with the, we spoke about it before. But if a centre half leaves, they've got one out on loan, they've got one in the youth team, and they've got one ready to sign. They've got like a conveyor belt of people. Now there's been plenty of opportunities this window to take players that we were being linked to in the past. But all I keep hearing from people I speak to is we've got someone who we're trying to set our sights on who's a higher standard. So, for instance, sitting midfielders, there's a few being linked, and we've kind of like just passed over them, and it's a bit like, well, why haven't we moved for him? And then you're hearing that, I don't know if you've heard, you know much about Ugarte from Sporting Lisbon.
Yeah, heard
he's like meant to be this next world beater type thing, like in his position, and he's apparently the one we're setting our sights on, because a year ago we were never going to get someone like that, but now we're like, oh, maybe we should wait 6 months, see where we're at, and reassess. So I think I'm not worried in that. I'm not worried in that respect. I think that the ones I'm worried about are the game changers like Bruno. But if you were going to tell me that I've got to tolerate St. Maximin and Gordon coming off the bench instead of Fraser and Murphy because we've got Joelinton, Almiron, and Wilson up front, that to me is building depth, and it's building that step to maybe go to play on a Thursday and Sunday or a Wednesday, Saturday, whatever it may be. And I do think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for us to grow with commercial opportunities and things like that. So if he wants to come here and stick it out and be part of the journey, then good for him, because I think it is going to be a journey. It's going to be a right experience. But some people won't be cut out for it. Some people will leave. Look at João Cancelo today. That baffled my head. I think it's some people just aren't cut out for the mentality for an extended period of time. And I think Newcastle's a very intense player to play football. But someone like Bruno has taken that on his shoulders because he's a passionate person. Whereas Botman has taken it on his shoulders and gone, I'm cool with it. I can deal with this. I like it. I enjoy it. There's different personalities, different characters. And I think Gordon is someone who's quite well suited to it. There's others who probably won't be.
Yeah. Right. So I think on balance, I think long term, based on what we've said, long term, I think Gordon probably edges it because we think he's a great player. Between now and the end of the season, I feel like Tetê is probably the one who had the.
I would say Tetê. I'd have taken Tetê.
I think a lot of teams would buy the looks of things, but what I'll do then, obviously, we've spent a while talking about our team, so we'll try and sort of finalize by talking about some other things, other things that caught our eye over the weekend just gone. The one I will say, and we'll try and do these quick fire if we can. The one I will say is City. Quite literally get one over Arsenal. They win 1-0. Is that quite a big statement victory in the title race? I know it was in the FA Cup. I know I'm not saying like it obviously plays a part in the league, but do you think that's a statement victory, or do you think Arsenal or do you think both of them were like, do you know what, that's a separate thing to the league, or do you think it is a bit of a psychological one up to Man City?
It's such a hard one. I think there's two ways you could look at it. Arsenal have one focus and one focus only. However, City probably see it as maybe they're not as good as we think they are. Now, there was a lot of changes and things, but City can go into the next game because they've still got to play each other twice in the league. City might think, do you know what? We can actually make up the 5 points difference by beating them twice. Whereas I think Arsenal could look at it and say, we're not letting that happen again. we knew what we did wrong. I thought Arsenal were the better team first half, but then City battered them second. I think it's going to be one of them on the day. What players are available? Is Partey available? Because obviously he's injured for a bit. And without wanting to go too far into it, I think there's definitely something more to his situation.
Yeah.
The
extending
Caicedo
bail for a
rumours,
third time. Yeah.
And I know it's not been officially named as him, but everyone knows it's him. And Caicedo, I completely like the player. I think he's a brilliant player. But how can Arsenal go from not looking at a central midfielder? They've held off on Tielemans, and then the day that's announced, or the day before that's announced, all of a sudden there's murmurs of Caicedo. That could really derail them. So it depends on who's available. I think City are in the best position because they've got nothing to lose. Look at the table now. Arsenal should win it. City, you've got the pressure off.
Yeah.
So I would say it wasn't defining, but it definitely can give either a negative or positive impact to both, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think City, will take some pride in it, because I think ultimately, since Pep went on his bit of his rant, they do look like they've bounced back a little bit. But I just think Arsenal are kind of like Arsenal. Every game, even when they lose or draw, like every game, they look that they're an easy 8 out of 10. Like, whereas City are kind of like, one game they'll be fantastic. Like, man, the game against Spurs is prime City this year. First half they were absolutely woeful, but then second half they were fantastic. Like, that is City this season. I don't know if
it was
they're
bizarre, wasn't it, that game? Yeah. Such a bizarre game.
I don't know if they're adjusting to the Haaland system or whatever, but I do think, as phenomenal as he's been, I think he needs to do more, because there are times in games where maybe it's not quite working for him, where I feel like he doesn't quite work hard enough, and it's kind of. I don't think that, but at the same time, I do. I think for what Pep wants to try and do on the pitch, I don't think he works hard enough.
Do you know what I think says a lot about that? And I think you're absolutely right. Is Alvarez comes on and they look a different team.
Yeah, because he's rats
come
about
on at times, and he's like he's at people. And do you know what I really like about Alvarez as well? They want to play tiki-taka and get it zipped about. Alvarez will shoot.
Yeah,
and I sometimes think, and not that Haaland doesn't shoot, but Alvarez will come into the 10 position, pick it up, turn and face goal, and get a shot off. And I think you've got to have that dimension of like flexibility. And I really, really, really like Alvarez. I think he's phenomenal. I love him as a footballer, but I worry that Haaland isn't suited to what City are set up for currently. They might be in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, but he's doing well in spite of the system.
Yeah, he's doing well just because he's a fantastic goal scorer, isn't he?
Exactly.
Like, he's always in the right place. How many goals has he scored this season by being in the 6-yard box and just being there?
Which is what proper poacher, isn't it?
Well, I mean, if you look down the years, Shearer did that, Sheringham, Kevin Phillips, like
Andy Cole, Les Ferdinand, and
all the best strikers.
Fowler.
All the best strikers just know where to put themselves, and that's the thing. He will. I think that if he played in any of the top 6, I think if he played in any of the top 6 teams, he'd probably be on similar numbers, just because he'd be in the right place. I think he probably has more than he would be anywhere else because it's City. But I just think in any of the other teams, he'd probably be on 15 to 20 goals already, just because he's always in the right place. It's very rare that even if, let's say, the ball goes over him or it gets cleared at the near post or it goes behind him, he's always somewhere in between the posts, between the penalty spot and the 6-yard box. He'll always be in that sort of small little square of area. So, but
I can't stand him. But Michael Owen is someone who really, like young Michael Owen, is someone who really reminds me of, that lightning pace off like 5 yards, but then the lightning pace over 40 as well.
Yeah.
And I know they're completely different sizes, but sometimes Owen would finish without taking a touch. And yet he's had the ball in his possession for 3 or 4 seconds. It's a bit like Haaland, the way they angle the body, the way they open up the angles. There's definite similarities in the way like they run off the shoulder. When the ball comes in, even if they're nowhere near it, they're still diving in on it.
Yeah,
it's impressive. It's very impressive. But I don't think Haaland's doing well because of the system. I think it's in spite of.
Yeah. So from 2 teams near the top that are doing incredibly well, actually, do you know, I know I asked you this last week, but I'll see after that result. I'll see if there's a bit of a change of heart. Who wins the title? Quick fire. Who wins the title? City or Arsenal?
Arsenal.
I'll go City.
What do you think?
I'll guess. I mean, I think if Arsenal beat City once, they win. I think if City win the first game between them, it goes to the wire, personally. I think if Arsenal win that first game, I can't see either of them really dropping many points, but especially Arsenal, they seem to be really solid. But if City can win that first game, it drags Arsenal right back, like it drags City right back along, like really closes that gap. But if Arsenal win, the gap opens up again to like 8 points.
Do you not think, and I know I've been hammered by my friends for this, but I still stick by it. I don't think City's depth is as good as it seems. If you look at the first 14 or 15 players, they are elite, every single one of them. But as soon as you get to like numbers 16, 17, 18 on the squad, they're like very young boys. Now, don't get me wrong, Cole Palmer, big talent.
Rico Lewis looks phenomenal.
Rico Lewis, excellent talent. Like I'm not going to criticize them as footballers, but they're not at that experience of winning a league and things yet. Whereas Arsenal have brought in the young Polish defender from Italy. They've brought in Trossard. They obviously were looking to bring in Mudryk, and that has obviously allowed funds to maybe be transferred over to someone like a Caicedo. Whereas City are losing Cancelo.
But the thing with,
I don't know. I think that Arsenal. It's got to be Arsenal's. Got to be.
I think that you've got two arguments there. You've got Arsenal look like the better squad and the better team at the moment. That's a fact. But you've also got City have been there and done it on repeat. Like City have a subscription to the Premier League title at the moment, don't they? So it's like that's what
4 in 5 years or something.
Yeah. That's what Arsenal are competing against. Is that Arsenal fans will be absolutely buzzing with the situation, and a lot of people will be hoping they win the league to break that trend. But City have been there and they've done it, and they it was that game against Spurs. I think that second half against Spurs where Arsenal went, this is a title race. We might be 5 points ahead, we might be 8 points ahead, but we're actually in a battle for this title because City just won't let up. They just won't. That's not what they do. And speaking of teams that have let up, and I know our friends at the Day Trippers podcast probably won't like us talking about this, but Liverpool look a shambles at the moment, and they're lucky. In my opinion, I mean, someone will tell me I'm wrong, but I don't know if you watched the game against Brighton, but they were lucky they didn't finish that game with 8 players. It was ridiculous. Like
I know Kev said himself today.
The fall off has been ridiculous from them, hasn't it? Like Liverpool went from being arguably one of the best teams in the world based on, net spend and the brand of football they were playing. And at the moment, like I'm actually sat here thinking that day that we lost to them 2-1 and Faz scored both own goals, that was a huge opportunity to go there and at least get a point, let alone 3 points. What's your take on that? What do you think's going wrong?
Everyone says, "Oh, it's the midfield. It's the midfield." Right? Okay. Yeah. That's the case made. There's no excusing the state of the midfield. I think looking at that Fabinho challenge the other day, I know he's got it in him, but that looked like a tired, leggy, lethargic challenge. It was almost like he's gone by me and I'm just going to do him. And then he kind of went, "Oh, probably shouldn't have done that." And
his face showed it was a red card, and he knew he was in trouble.
And if they'd shown him red, he'd have gone, probably
he'd have had no arguments.
Walked off.
Yeah.
So the midfield is definitely up for debate. But I also think football is a game where things come in and out of trend all the time, every single time. If you go back over the last 10 to 12 years, there isn't one system that's worked for 10 to 12 years. There just isn't. There was false nines for a while where no one played with a 9. Then there was the 4-2-3-1. Then there was Conte's 3-5-2. Do you remember when he was at Chelsea?
Yeah.
And no one could get anywhere near him?
He turned Victor Moses and Marcos Alonso into 2 outstanding Premier League winners. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think Klopp has had such a good system with this gegenpressing and, the high-intensity stuff. Maybe some of them are just a bit fatigued. They played a lot of games, and I think the age is showing. When you had Robertson, who was like a young whippersnapper, early 20s, now he's getting to his late 20s. Does he have that energy? Not to say he hasn't got the enthusiasm, because I love Robertson, being a Scotland fan. But
I think I saw or heard somewhere, I can't remember where, but in the last 12 months, I think Liverpool played 20 more games than Arsenal, and that's half a season. That's half a season more than what Arsenal played. So it's understandable if they're not up for it anymore. Not in terms of their mentality, but their bodies. They'd be shattered. They'd be absolutely shattered. They, especially with the way, like you say, the way that Klopp plays, they'd be shattered. There's no way they wouldn't be.
And I also think if you look at Pochettino and what he achieved with Spurs, I don't think Pochettino's style is. They keep talking about getting him back. I don't think he comes in and plays the same style and gets success all of a sudden.
No.
I think football's changed, and it's about adapting and developing, and that's why people like Fergie were so successful. And Klopp has this 7-year cycle. Now, I don't know if you believe it. I don't know what people think. I'm not saying it's
I believe
true.
the Brendan Rodgers 3-year cycle, so the Klopp 7-year cycle's got to be a thing.
Yeah, it's not even that I think Klopp's like worn out. I don't think he's lost his magic. I don't think it's anything like that. But you have to constantly keep rebuilding, and I think Leicester are finding that now.
Yeah,
I'm a bit gutted Shelby's leaving, and I'm a bit gutted Wood's left. But if you're telling me in a year's time that allows for a new, fresh sitting midfielder to come in and a new, fresh number 9, I say number 9, like a proper target man comes in with a point to prove, that's the time to do it when you kind of go, oh, that's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, let's say in the summer and you've lost Wood and you think, oh, he's all right. But then in the summer you go and sign Zaniolo from Roma. You go, okay, I can see that logical progression there. You're okay with it, aren't you?
Yeah, and I don't think they've done that at the right times because, and I can understand why, because they've had so much joy. Why would you be selling players if they nearly had the quad last year, now they're 10th, or 9th, 8th, 9th or something? Yeah. So I don't think it's necessarily that anything's gone wrong. I just think something has to change in terms of function, system, the way it's done. And the high line, and I said this on the Day Trippers podcast at the very start of the season, Liverpool are phenomenal with a high line. I remember at the back end of last season, I think they caught us off when we were in a relegation battle, offside 12 times. And it was so frustrating because the one time we got through, Alisson sweeped it. So you've got to have that like flexibility to go, do you know what, it's not working, we'll go to plan B. And I don't think a lot of managers want to do that because they are so like, no, this is my philosophy, got loads of respect for it. But if it's not working and it hasn't worked for 6 months, when does it change?
Yeah, I'm with you there.
There's got to be a change.
Yeah, right. I think that the boys at the Trippers will tell you. Like, I remember when I was on with them the other night, and we were talking about it, and we sort of said the midfield is the most obvious problem, but it does run deeper than that. I think you're absolutely right. It runs much deeper than that. I think ultimately, if FSG are looking to sell, they're not going to be investing loads of money into the playing squad if they are looking to sell. Do you know what I mean? If they're going to wait until somebody else comes in, that's a logical thing for them to do. But it's a shame because they were the. I mean, let's be honest. If they hadn't been around, we are currently talking about the Premier League being a farmers' league and Man City walking away with it every year. So you've got to give them some credit, no matter what you think of Liverpool or Klopp or any of them. Like, they've been phenomenal. But like, you look at players like Salah. Salah signed this new contract, and he looks like the Chelsea Mo Salah at the moment. He looks really average. And Van Dijk, without the protection in front of him, doesn't look the same. Like, Trent has gone off. Like James Milner. I mean, love him, love James Milner. Like, he's literally a model professional, but he shouldn't still be playing in a top 6 team in the Premier League.
Like, look at Ashley Young, what he's doing. He could be doing that elsewhere, couldn't he?
Yeah, James Milner could be at a Leicester or back at Villa because he's played for Villa. Like, he could be at Leeds, back where he started doing this. So it's but you're right.
I think Mane as well. Sorry, Mane.
No, go for it.
It felt like. I always said this, and it's not that I prefer Mane to Salah in terms of footballer, but I preferred what he achieved more. I think because in games where Salah's great for FPL, he gets loads of points, bonus points, goals, assists, all that. But Mane would get the 2-1 goal in a win against Man City. Yeah. Salah would get the 3-0, 4-0 goals in a win against Wolves at home. Yeah. And obviously they're both important, but if you're talking about clutch players, Mane always seemed to turn up with a little tap in or a scruffy 1-0.
Mane's the big game player, isn't he? Mane's the one
that
He was the one that would win you the FA Cup or win you the League Cup or win you the Champions League. I know Salah's been incredible for Liverpool. We're not taking away from him there at all.
No, absolutely.
I know what you mean. Like, it's like, who would you take in a final, Drogba or Shearer? You'd take Drogba in a final all day long because he's a big game player. That's what he does. Like, and even though Shearer's the best goal scorer the Premier League's ever seen, goal scorer there, not striker.
I say the same about Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane's a bit of a bottler in big moments.
Yeah.
I think he not hides deliberately. I don't think he goes in and goes, "Oh, I'm going to be quiet today." I don't know if he's got the personality to take everything on his shoulders. Whereas I look at even, do you know what's a perfect analogy of that? Do you remember the African Cup of Nations?
Yeah.
When you had Mane, Salah, all that type of stuff, the qualifiers and stuff. Mane turned up again and again and again and again. And I think losing him was probably a bit of a bit of a mistake. Yeah. And I know he wanted to go, and you can't keep someone against their will. But I don't think he felt valued enough. If you'd said to Mane, a year before, have a contract. We love you here. We want you to finish your career here. I think you've maybe got a different story now.
Yeah, I think just to throw that out there, Papi Mendy also was a clutch player in that final as well. So well done, Papi.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, but the last thing we'll talk about today, I don't think we're quite going to have time to talk about Milan's 5-2 drubbing at home to Sassuolo. But what we will talk about is something that is actually quite close to both of our hearts, actually, because obviously Euan, as you said earlier, like you've obviously got a soft spot for. You said before on the show that you've got a soft spot for Celtic. I've also got quite a soft spot for Hibernian as well. And I know a lot of people will probably be upset about us saying this, but like me particularly, because I run the Twitter account and I've kind of convinced you to try and get on it, but he never does. It's always me that takes the flak for it. But you look at this table here. Rangers have obviously had a resurgence in recent years. Like obviously they got to the Europa League final and were phenomenal in the Van Bronckhorst in that run. But you look at the money that like Rangers have just signed Todd Cantwell. Like they're signing reasonably good Championship and lower Premier League players. But the goal difference for Celtic, 54 points. They're 9 points clear of them. And then obviously beyond that, you've then got a 16-point gap to third place. Is the SPL now a one-club league? Or do you think Rangers will just be there nipping away at their heels? I can't see Rangers winning another title anytime soon because Celtic look like they are on it at the moment. Their recruitment is phenomenal. I don't know what syndicate Ange Postecoglou is a part of in Japan, but my God, some of those players he brings in are phenomenal. Like Kyogo is an unbelievably talented footballer.
I love Hatate. I think he's phenomenal. I really like him. I know Maeda as well. I know Maeda's got his critics up there, and I get why. He seems very wasteful, but he's come up in big moments.
Yeah, he's a clutch player again, isn't he?
Moments. So it's almost like, he's not great on the eye and he maybe doesn't score the lovely finishes or whatever, but he offers something. Yeah. I am someone who thinks that Rangers have got their model all wrong. Yeah. If you look at not in terms of like the wider, they've done really well, but I think they've rode on the crest of a wave for that long, and the wave's kind of come into a bit of a lull, and it's almost like they don't have a strategy in place of the way they want to play, who they're signing, what suits the system. And I think a lot of it, and I hate to be like, I think it's a lot of, he's a big name. Like Aaron Ramsey, that was a really, really disappointing transfer. And if you'd said in January, Aaron Ramsey joining Rangers, you'd go, it's a great signing. But Aaron Ramsey hasn't played for so many years regularly. And yet Celtic have gone and got Matt O'Reilly from MK Dons.
Up and coming, young, hungry player.
He'll be in the Premier League. Someone will pay.
Well, we were looking at him in the summer. We were trying to sign him in the summer.
He is one who will make it in the Premier League because he's a classy footballer. And I know a lot of the Celtic fans are kind of on his back at the minute. They don't feel like he necessarily wants to be there. But again, he's someone who's got a point to prove. Ramsey's got no point to prove.
He's done it. He's made his money, hasn't he? Like,
and they've had to rely on the same old lads. And Celtic, if you say their best players over the last few years, Jota came in from Benfica, point to prove. Kyogo came in from Asia, point to prove. Matt O'Reilly, point to prove. You could go through the full lot.
Joe Hart constantly written off in his later stages, like since Pep told him he was no good, and he's gone to Celtic. And I know it's a different level; like he doesn't have to make big saves all the time. He's not being asked to do that like he was at Burnley and etc. Like, but he will be happy to be a title winning player again. He will be more than happy to sit there and because he's not for Joe Hart. He was always a big character. He'll be somebody in that dressing room who's been in winning dressing rooms who will be like, this is the mentality we need to have. Whatever you say about him as a player in recent years, but at Celtic, he's arguably one of the best keepers they've had probably since I've been really following Scottish football for the last 15 years or so. He's one of the best keepers they've had up there.
I think the only one who was better was Forster.
Yeah. When in his time at Celtic, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, not currently, but when he was there, he made some phenomenal stops. But I agree with you. I think he's got to be up there. Got to be.
Yeah. But I just think that like you look at the gap, right? Let's just look at it there. So from Rangers, who are second to Hearts, you've got 16 points. But then from Hearts to bottom of the table, Kilmarnock, you've got 19 points. Like that's. I mean, I know the Premier League, you could argue the same thing, but it's a bit different when you've got a bigger league. I just think the league needs investment. I love watching Scottish football because they're all they've all got really big devout followings in their areas. They've all got old school stadiums that are phenomenal, like venues to play football in. Like it's in Scotland, it's still, even though Celtic and Rangers financially are much more elite, it's still very much like the working man's game, isn't it? Like up in Scotland, it is for the day-to-day fan, and I just love that league to get investment. And I think you'd hope that if Celtic can kick on in Europe and like Rangers get into the Europa League final, you'd hope that somebody would look at it and go, do you know what? That's an untapped resource there. And
they pack the stadiums out. A lot of them. I know not all of them do. I'm not going to say they all do. Because when the Old Firm come to town, the Old Firm often take up 2 or 3 stands. That's definitely a factor. However, I feel like if there was money there to be had, they were on about getting a new TV deal, and it kind of, it didn't fall on its face, but it didn't end up being worth as much as it should have been.
Yeah,
I look at them clubs and I think Aberdeen should not be 7th.
No, but
it's just been beaten in the cup by a 6th-tier team.
Yeah,
but it's not the size of club that's the problem. It's the investment and the attitude towards the league itself, I think.
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking of doing, because we are nearly out of time, so we'll wrap up shortly. But what I was thinking of doing is trying to get a couple of like Scottish football fans on. I know I've been speaking to a couple, but if we can get a couple of Scottish fans on who can really delve into this with us, I'd absolutely love to do that, because I know Scottish football is something that's close to both of our hearts, really. Like I've always liked Scottish football. I still will tune into every Old Firm derby, and if I have time, obviously I know Leicester are obviously my team, but if I have time, I will watch Hibernian if I'm free and they're playing. So it's when
they played the other day, I was making food and I went away and Rangers went 2-1 up really quickly in the second half. I don't know if you remember. And I have lights underneath my telly and I had green on and everything, because obviously I'm a big Celtic fan. And I was genuinely really annoyed. I was like, oh, for God's sake. But to me, it matters because I know my granddad he was a season ticket holder. He went to all the Europe, the UEFA Cup finals and stuff. He went to. I've got a Real Betis scarf up there because he didn't want to get a Sevilla one because it was red, green and white. And there's so much to Scottish football, and I feel like it's almost like frowned upon by British. So I'd like to kind of shed a light on it. And also shout out to Ange Postecoglou. When he came, no one could even say his name. That man has a real good attitude. When Michael Beale came, a lot of people were like, oh, Michael Beale. And he was like, look, load of respect for Michael Beale, but we're talking about Celtic here. And I just think that's a brilliant attitude to have, because he doesn't get involved in it and he's more bothered about what his team are going to do. I love him. I think he's brilliant.
Yeah. Great way to sign off there then, Euan. Thank you. So it brings us to a nice close. Unfortunately, didn't quite have time to talk about Milan, and if there are any AC Milan fans listening, then you're probably happy about that. But so we've been talking a little bit about now we've got this set up. We were talking about potentially doing some watch alongs. Unfortunately, with me and Euan being very busy, we haven't had time to sit down and actually do one yet. But it's something we really would like to do, because it means we can just talk about anything. We're not limited to an hour. We can talk about anything whilst watching the game. So I think it'd just be a good idea. Let us know what you think in your replies on Twitter and in the comments. I will be putting a link to my Just Giving page for the Martlets Hospice charity in the YouTube description, in the Spotify description, and I'll keep posting it on Twitter. It is our pinned tweet. But we will finish there before we creep over an hour. Euan, thank you very, very much for giving up your time to join me again this evening.
Cheers, Jack. Appreciate it always. And I tell you what, we're making a habit of this under an hour thing, aren't we? Look at it, a minute and a half to spare.
It's professional now, mate. It's professional.
Getting there.
But so don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on both Spotify and YouTube. And we will see you next week. Take care, all. Thank you.
Take care.